I've just discovered my new favourite marinade. It's called Charmoula and it's a Moroccan blend of herbs, preserved lemons and a bunch of spices. There's 3 varieties of this marinade, red, yellow and green, but today we're going to cook some Tbsp Charmoula or chicken with red Charmoula. It's one of the best dishes I've cooked in the past 2 years and you're going to love it.
What makes the Charmoula so good is that it's got a bright herby flavour with a little heat and some sourness. That makes it a perfect marinade for any meat, and once it's cooked you'll be left with the delicious sauce which is perfect for dipping with bread. Although we'll be using the Charmoula to marinate our chicken, it's also used as a condiment, and if you're okay with raw garlic then it's pretty good on some bread. To make the Charmoula you'll need to get a couple of special ingredients. The first one is preserved lemons, and these are thin-skinned lemons that are preserved in a salt and vinegar mixture. The salt tenderizes the flesh of the lemon and so you can eat the whole thing skin and all. I love snacking on these as they have a really citrusy flavour and they're pretty good in sandwiches. The other ingredient you'll need is harissa. This is a spicy red pepper paste from North Africa, and pretty much everyone agrees that this Tunisian brand is the best in the world. We previously used this in our shakshuka recipe, and I'll leave the links for both ingredients in the description box. For the marinade, take 2 preserved lemons if they're this small size and cut them into quarters so you can easily access their flesh. Now use the side of a teaspoon to scoop the flesh off of the skin, kind of like what you do with an avocado. I'd actually recommend you finely chop the flesh once you've removed it, but you can also use it whole like I'm doing. Also, don't throw out those skins, they can be eaten or used to decorate the final dish. Next up, take 15 grams of parsley, slice off the chunky stalks, then use a knife to mince it to a fairly small size. Add that to a bowl with the preserved lemon flesh, then do the same thing again with 15 grams of coriander. For this, pick out all of the large stalks, leaving the smaller ones, then chop it small as well. With that added to the bowl, we can move on to spices, and the first one we need is a pinch of saffron, one of the most expensive and flavourful spices in the world. This needs to be ground into a powder, and that brings me to a question. When we were in Dubai we got a traditional copper pestle and mortar which is usually used in Iran to grind saffron. I added my 20 to 30 threads of saffron and a pinch of salt to the mortar, yet no matter how much I ground it the saffron remained whole. What am I doing wrong? I moved all the saffron and salt to my usual mortar and then ground that into a powder with total ease. When yours looks like this, add about a tablespoon of boiling water, then mix it to dissolve. Once you have a golden red liquid that looks like this, add it to the bowl with the rest of the ingredients. Follow that up with 4 cloves of garlic which you'll need to finely mince. Next up comes the harissa, and last time around I used a tube of the harissa paste but they didn't have that in store, so this time I'm using a small can, but rest assured that it's exactly the same thing. Add a tablespoon of harissa to the other ingredients, and just for luck I added in a tad more. To season you'll add 1 teaspoon each of salt and then sweet paprika, then follow up with half a teaspoon each of black pepper, ground cumin and ginger. Lastly you add in 2 tablespoons of olive oil, then give the whole thing a really good mix. Make sure you grind the lemon pulp into the other ingredients and you should be left with something that looks like this. Now I'm not one to shy away from raw garlic, so of course I went right ahead and tasted it with a bit of bread. With my mouth now stinking of raw garlic, I contemplated the meaning of life while preparing the chicken. We're using 600 grams of chicken legs, though you can make this marinade work with up to 1 kilogram of chicken. I'd recommend you use chicken legs over breast here as we'll be braising it for over an hour, but you can still use chicken breast if you want. All you need to do is to separate the skin from the meat using your fingertips, and that will allow the marinade to make direct contact with the meat for extra flavour penetration. Add all of the marinade to the chicken, then massage it under the skin and into the meat until you've covered the whole thing inside and out. When your chicken looks like this you should set it aside to marinate and give it at least half an hour, but preferably 2. While that's marinating, let me give you the rundown on our cooking vessel, the humble Moroccan Tagine. It's basically a clay pan with a conical lid, and they've been used in North Africa for centuries. They come in glazed and non-glazed varieties, but our butcher recommended a non-glazed one for cooking. If your stove is electric you'll also need to get one of these heat diffusers so that your tagine doesn't crack. If you get one that isn't glazed it will need to be seasoned like a wok, and that starts by giving it a bath. Both the lid and base of the tagine need to be soaked in water for about 12 to 24 hours. After soaking overnight we brush the interior and exterior of both parts with olive oil, then we put it into our oven while it was off, and then we heated it to 150 degrees Celsius and set the timer for 2 hours. When that came out of the oven it got a coating of olive oil on the inside, and then it was ready to be used for the first time. Just like a wok, the seasoning gets better every time you use it, and after you use it you'll need to oil it again. Once your chicken is marinated, you'll begin by adding 2 tablespoons of olive oil to the bottom of the tagine or whatever pot you'll be cooking it in. You'll then add in 2 onions chopped to a medium small dice, and these will dissolve into a sauce as the dish cooks. Add half a teaspoon each of salt and ground ginger to the onions, then give that a very thorough mix before moving it to the stove. Before you do that though, make sure you place your heat diffuser under the tagine, as direct contact with the heating element can cause the tagine to break. Now place your tagine on top of the diffuser, then turn the heat to low and let it come up to temperature. While that's heating up, you should take the time to oil the inside of your lid, but under no circumstances should you use a kitchen towel like I'm doing, as it will coat your lid in paper fibres. Once the onions have started to sweat and there's a little bit of steam action going on, place your chicken into the tagine on top of the onions. Turn the heat to medium and then cover the tagine with the lid, letting it cook for 10 minutes. After those 10 minutes, the chicken should have released most of its liquid, and you need to turn the heat to low before covering and cooking for another 20 to 30 minutes. When that time is up, you'll add the last few ingredients, starting with 75 grams of mixed black and green olives. Make sure you're buying good quality olives because the jarred ones will ruin this dish, and also make sure that they're pitted. The final ingredient is 2 tablespoons of lemon juice, and you need to pour this all over the chicken so it's well coated. Replace the lid, then let this cook for 10 minutes more on low heat. At this point the olives should have softened, and after a quick temperature check everything is looking fantastic. The only thing I want to do is reduce the sauce by a bit, so I let this go for another 10 minutes uncovered until the sauce reduced by about half, and then it was ready to eat. In the end you'll have deliciously tender chicken in an onion and Charmoula sauce, and even the olives will be packed full of extra flavour. To accompany it you want some bread which should be soft and fluffy on the inside with a little crustiness on the outside. That will make the perfect tool for soaking up the sauce and digging into the chicken.
Alright, time to dig into this chicken Charmoula. First bite, a bit of the onions with one of the olives. Wow, that is incredible. Alright, chicken time. I don't want to use this word too much, but this is literally insane. It is just too good. I'm honestly astounded by how good this chicken tastes. I think there's a million different ways for how you can use the marinade, and I think I'll have to do another video on it really soon. But in the meantime, click here for more amazing marinades.